everybody, and good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world, good whatever it is. It's Friday, and I got to be honest, I just took the dogs for a walk right now in my little part of the world, and it's warm. It was awesome. Like, my dogs actually were really happy taking the walk. So I'm Greg Gnyp. I'm the Gnyp of Gnyp Gnop. My friend over there with the glasses, that would be Chris Uzinski. He's the Gnop. How are you, my friend?
You know what? I am. It is a beautiful day, but I'm starting to drink already. I know we got a great guest on today.
That's probably why you're drinking already.
That's right. Halloran's got me drinking already.
Yeah, you know what? Okay, I just have to say,
Well,
what are you drinking? By the way,
it's a wonderful hard seltzer by the folks at Hard Hat Breweries up in Stratford, Ontario. Great microbrewery.
Nice. See, and today I'm actually...
Is that a sponsor mention there? I know I'm not on yet, but is that a sponsor mention?
It's like the voice of God. What was that?
See that?
Seriously, if that's a sponsor mention, I need to know because I've got coffee.
Right? See that? You can always tell the radio guy right away because he hears the name of something and he goes, "Hey, is that the sponsor? How do you say the sponsor's name?
What the fuck is that?"
All right, well, I guess we should just say this now. Look, so if you think alternative radio, modern rock radio, I mean, let's be honest, in North America, but I mean, especially starting off in the Detroit, Windsor area, Mike Halloran is definitely one of the leaders. Oh, you're looking good. But
just checking radio. You know how radio is. You gotta look good.
Synonymous with modern rock radio. I mean, I remember, WDET, WLBS.
WLBS.
Still there. Not LBS, but DET still there.
Yeah. And
when you say you remember, you know about
you
these
with
things.
WDET.
Yeah.
But so, ladies and gentlemen, Mike Halloran, and a lot of people don't, and it's funny though, a lot of people don't also understand this part is there was a very small group of people who were from the States who went, wow, 88.7 FM, what a screwed up radio station that one is, and how you are, and like you're one of the building blocks of 89X as the cutting edge of rock, along with Greg St. James, Lex Cooney, Jim Edelman, Lem Payne. I mean, Scott Brown. You guys were the geniuses all behind what happened for 30 years in Windsor. So, Mike Halloran, welcome to the show.
Welcome.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Let me correct you on two things. The first thing is that 89X was born out of frustration, as you probably know, but it was born out of frustration because there was not an alternative station happening. And by the way, when I started doing it, the word alternative didn't exist.
Right.
It existed, but we never used it for what we were doing because we looked at it in a way that we wanted to make it so massively popular that alternative would not apply because it would be mainstream. And I think we achieved that in most places. But 89X was started because St. James had lost yet another gig. I don't know what he was doing. And he used to come visit me in San Diego because he had relatives out here. And we would sit around and brainstorm. And at one point, he was talking about CJOM, which it was at one point, which I had actually almost taken over in '83, but it was stopped by the Canadian Radio and Television Commission, right? We were about to launch it with Jeff Sterling because he was the owner at the time, this other guy called Michael Linder, and it just didn't happen. And then I went through the whole LBS thing, the whole Wheels thing, and the DTX thing, and Greg came out to San Diego and I said, why don't we try them again? They got shitty ratings. They probably can't be making any money. I'm sure the company would be happy if they could make some money. And that was the key. The term money was the key because Greg kept coming up with these playlists and he would send them to Al Pervin, and Al would be like, what do I do with this? It's a fucking list of songs.
Yeah.
So at that point, we got my old roommate, Lem Payne, who I lived with in '84 downtown Detroit, the late great Lem Payne, and Lem went out and sold advertising to a station that did not exist yet. He he basically, he was selling Cadillacs, and selling Cadillacs is selling an image, right? You need this Cadillac so that you look cooler than anybody else. So sure enough, Lem got out there. I think he signed up Mark Keller, and he signed up a few other, the promoters and all that stuff. And so Greg St. James went back to Al Pervin with signed contracts of how much money Al would make if he fucking flipped the format. So Al split the difference and said, fine, you can have these many hours at night. And that was the impetus for Al to realize that he could make more money if he just expanded the hours. Like, in other words, we start with 2 or 3 hours, and then we just keep making it bigger and bigger. And that's why the station kind of morphed into 24 hours a day. So it was really Lem Payne, and it's a pity he's not here because he deserves more, accolades. And then obviously everybody else came piling on board, Lex and Edelman and the Jocks. Because when did you get in there, Greg? Were you there before it flipped formats? Were you in the building?
I was doing 2 overnight shifts. I was doing 2 overnight shifts. So it used to be kind of funny. I would come in and hit the button, and it would go CIMX FM smooth radio. Here's smooth and it would be like we'd finish up with like Renegade Soundwave or something like that, and then all of a sudden it'd be like, and here's Celine Dion.
Gotta get that can content.
Wait, what time in the morning was that it would switch back? 1, 2?
Because if I'm not mistaken, 89X was, what was it? It was 8 till midnight. So this probably like midnight, right? Because
I think it's originally, I believe it started. He said something like, okay, you can have 10 to midnight or 10 to 1, and then it went 10 to 3 in the morning. And then it went 9 to 3 in the morning. It was just like he just kept it, like every time more money came in, he would just like the top. If this is midnight, it would just like tick, 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 tick. It was like suddenly spread out, and then he said at one point, "Wow, we can't." I'm putting words in Al Pervin's mouth. We can't stop the money flow. So wham bam. It's like money conquers everything. Unfortunately,
and you know what? And I'm just going to say it this way. And I love Al Pervin. He was between Greg and Al hired me on. That's how I got my start at 89X. But you're right though, Al. If you showed him money, he'd go, I can give you 3 more hours. Start at 6 p.m. now.
Right. He did. And the funny thing about it was, when I look back upon it, because our discussions with Greg St. James in San Diego was, how does this work? And it all came down to the same thing. It's the bits of commercials in between all that insane music we were playing. As you said, Renegade Soundwave. What the fuck? One of my favorite bands of all time. But could you imagine going into the guy who's running like WRIF or Wheels or anything at the time and going, hey man, I need a show because I have Renegade Soundwave. People, they go like, you're fucking insane. You are. You're fucking insane to do that. So, as I said, when we first talked to Lem, because I think Lem was at the Metro Times. He was selling for the Metro Times at one point. I think he'd left Seymour Cadillac. When I was his roommate, actually, after I left LBS, I needed a job, and so I became the car porter. I was moving cars around the lot at Seymour Cadillac down in Jefferson, which I have no idea if it's still there or not. But it was insane times. But it was really Lem, which I don't know if you guys know this, but Lem's younger brother used to run Death Row Records. Still kind of does.
That's incredible. I did not know that.
And Lem's grandson is a shredder. He's on Instagram as Austin. His name is Austin Payne, Payne, but he goes under the Instagram handle. What's your handle? Austin Actin a Fool, not acting with a G, but right. Actin a Fool. If you want to check out the double offspring of Lem Payne, Austin is a fucking shredder.
Okay, so Mike, one of the things when we were growing up as a kid here in the Windsor market was WLBS. WLBS was only around for less than a year, right?
Well, it was less than a year when I was there, but prior to that, it had been on the air for about a year, and it slowly was adjusting its format.
And
it started in '83,
and there was stuff on that, like this song, "The Big Man Restless," "Kissing the Pink." Like there was stuff that no one had ever heard of that you guys were playing. Was not was Don was. It's just some of the most incredible stuff that just kind of blew our minds, and then it just went away so quickly. And of course, like I think in that vacuum, I think college radio really kind of picked it up a lot. DET did. CBC Brave New Waves picked up a lot of that new alternative music, kind of getting it to the kids, and all the crazy kids wanted more. And like we talked about last night for quite a bit, how we would run to the record shop. We would run literally to open up the import shop to figure out what's coming off the boat today. And it was
you are more than correct, and what's weird is that there are probably the children or grandchildren of former listeners that are going, record? What is he talking about?
Imports. Not even that.
But you're still speaking Greek to these people. Imports, they're like, well, where was it imported from? I mean, what you're talking about, if you have to break down the stuff for the people who don't know anything about what we did, pieces of vinyl. I used to call it dinosaur blood, because dinosaur blood was sucked up out of the earth and it was molten, and they would smash these things together and they would imprint music on them, basically like fucking Thomas Edison. I mean, that's the technology.
Yeah, for sure. But there was this relationship that we had as consumers of the music, that it would be like a hunt. We were always on the hunt. We were always over at our buddy's house. Hey, did you get that latest Sisters of Mercy single or EP? Right. Okay, great. I got a tape here. Can we throw it in the machine and make a tape? And we were always struggling to find new and better and more alternative and more exciting music. And it was a great time to be alive and in the music industry.
Well, I'm glad you remember it that way, because it was it was also very frustrating, because we were always given short shrift as far as any radio play. The LBS thing was kind of a fluke. And I love the fact that you brought that Kissing the Pink song up, because that was one of my favorite albums back in the 80. Well, it kind of came out in 83, but became popular in 84, excuse me. And the LBS thing was a total fluke, because originally what people don't realize was the guy who owned it, Percy Sutton, who was the guy who owned technically the family. I'm not sure if Percy's still alive, but they owned the Apollo Theater in New York City, which is a landmark, unbelievably fucking cool place, that basically broke new talent, brought people in there and gave them, 10 minutes on stage, 5 minutes on stage, and made the world a better place. So he, meaning Percy Sutton, bought a signal in Detroit. His station in New York was WBLS. So when he bought the station in Detroit, he said it was going to be WLBS. It would be close enough. Same logo virtually, and it was going to play disco and more, I believe, was the actual thing. And I don't mean disco like the horrible disco, white dude disco. I'm talking about soul music that was more danceable.
Right.
So when it started in Detroit, the company, and I can't remember the name of the company now, whatever it was called, could not make enough money because the signal, LBS, as you guys know, was based in Mount Clemens. And Mount Clemens was just too far away from the inner city of Detroit to get a large enough urban audience. And it just didn't have the same thing. So one of their DJs in New York, this guy called Sergio Munzabai, started playing remix stuff on the air. And he started playing New Order's Blue Monday. He started playing artists that would be considered alternative in this day and age, Shalimar, other things. And basically this format kind of developed out of his vision. And they'd sent a guy called Captain Roberts. That was the DJ name. And he was on the air doing, I think, afternoons or nights or whatever the fuck he was doing. And I used to have to bug him to get a job there. And he didn't hire me. And I was getting frustrated. And DET wanted me to go back, because this is the middle of 83. I just gotten back in California. And Captain Roberts basically was like, well, I don't know. So I told you this story last night. So I called my old friend, the Electrifying Mojo, who I'd known for 3-4 years. I know it sounds really weird. Like, he didn't have a cell phone then. Nobody had cell phones back then. So I tried to get him on his AOL pager. Oh, that didn't exist either. So we had to call request lines. And then eventually he gave me the hotline number. And at the time he was still, I think he had just left GPR, the station down at the WGPR, whatever the high frequency was, 107.
Yeah.
I can't remember.
Yeah.
Whatever it was. He just left there and he'd gotten a job at JLB. This is before he went to HYT, but he got the job at JLB. And we would talk all the time. And then he gave me the new number, and we would keep in touch, but we would have these meetings. I like to call them my secret meetings at Lafayette, Coney Island, because it was close enough to both of his offices, and it was no issue for me to, drive down to Greektown. Well, it wasn't Greektown, was it? It was the other side of Woodward.
Yeah.
So drive over to both the Coney places and meet him. And nobody knew what the guy looked like. And nobody knew what I looked like for the most part. So we'd go sit there and have these meetings, and I was explaining to him how frustrated I was because I didn't want to go back to DET because I felt it beneath me at that point, because I think I'd proved enough of a point to be, big enough at that point. Of course, I didn't fucking know anything, that I should be on a commercial station like LBS. And he said to me, and at the time, I was just kind of thinking, what the fuck is he saying? What is he saying to me? Until I kind of realized that he has this very cryptic way of saying things. But he said, Mike, I can't do a good impersonation. Mike, Mike. He goes, you can't kick anybody in the balls when you're on your knees. You need to stand up, take the job at DET, get back on the radio, and then good things will happen. And I thought,
all right,
okay.
Sage advice.
Right. I didn't really, now I understand the concept completely. Now it makes total sense to me. You have to swallow your pride, go back, do whatever you want. And sure enough, I think I went back to DET in August of 83. And by December, Captain Roberts, the guy that was running WLBS at the time, basically said, fine, we'll start you basically on my birthday. It was January 7th of 84. And that's when most people became aware of LBS, but it had been doing what it was doing for probably about a year before that. People started noticing, why the fuck are they playing Blue Monday in the middle of the day? All 7.5 minutes of it. Why are they playing these other things? So when I went in there, and Captain Roberts basically said, you have to play the currents, which were whatever they were at the time, including like Kissing the Pink and stuff, and then you can play your own stuff. That's when I brought in Violent Femmes. That's when I brought in the Gang of Fours of the world. Yeah. I brought in other things, and that was the whole. It was an evolution. Same thing with 89X. It took a while to evolve, but eventually, Clash came to the studio. The Clash came to fucking WLBS. Think about that for a second. Joe fucking Strummer went all the way out to Mount Clemens to hang out on the air. Unfucking fathomable when you think about how crazy that was.
Yeah.
Oh, it's amazing.
And other bands too.
But the thing was, the thing that I remember so much about LBS was it would be, not only was it the music though, it was the DJs. You guys that would always have the stories of the bands, or the information about the bands, or talk even simply just about the artwork. That the 12-inch, it's like, if you buy the Lithuanian imprint of Gang of Four, it's going to be different than the Ecuadorian one.
It was the Latvian one. Everybody gets. They don't understand it was not the Lithuanian one. That always comes up in the folklore, but it was actually the Latvian one.
But the thing was, you guys cost me so much money because if it was a band that I liked, if you talked about a 12-inch that I had never seen before, I would either go to the States. Or it would be, okay, next time we go to Toronto, hit all the record stores down Queen Street because I've got to find this damn version of this one song.
Which one do you remember paying the most for, and how much did you pay?
Oh man.
Probably Temple of Love was over $20 at that time.
Really?
Yeah.
As an import here.
The 12-inch?
In Canadian dollars.
Yeah. I I remember. I remember. For me, one
I'm
of the
just
most.
thinking of you walking into a store, and the guy is going, he's gonna buy, he's gonna get, sunglasses at night, and you walk up and you go, hey, do you have, you have Temple of Love? And then he goes,
Sisters. Sisters
I'm
of
gonna
Mercy.
charge him double.
Sisters of Mercy, Temple of Love, import. Yeah. Or tubular. I got a Tubular Bells import, one of the first pressings of it. Yeah, that was a lot. Anyway.
Which album? Tubular Bells, you said?
Yeah, Mike Oldfield's Tubular Bells, one of the original pressings from Virgin.
Right. The one of the original records on Virgin.
The original
back in the
record
day.
on Virgin, yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
That's fucking insane.
So why did WLBS stop playing alternative format music so suddenly? What happened to that
there's
decision?
two rumors. One was the main guy, Percy, was getting upset because his image in his head was that LBS was starting to take off. And this is only a rumor. I don't know if it's true. Maybe somebody from that organization can confirm or deny this. And he decided to fly into Detroit and got to the airport, turned on the station, couldn't hear it, driving closer and closer, and finally it starts, fading in like somewhere up to 94. And he heard Violent Femmes, or he heard Sisters of Mercy, or he heard something else.
Sure.
And he called Janie Washington, who was his general manager of the station. Wonderful lady, absolutely still love her to this day. And Janie was very pragmatic. She knew what was happening. She saw what was going on, and she basically let all, because if I had the Violent Femmes record in the studio, the other jocks could play it.
Right.
They could play other things other than just, Shalimar or I'm trying to remember the other, more urban hits that were on the new wave side of things. Rockwell was probably out there. I don't remember. I'd have to go look through the charts. But suddenly his radio station didn't sound as, and here's the other thing. Nobody was playing hip hop on the radio except us. We were the first station to play. I remember playing Curtis Blow on that station. I remember when the Beastie Boys came in and Rick Rubin found a copy of What People Do for Money and wanted to beat mix it on the air, but the turntables and radio stations didn't have pitch control. So you couldn't really beat mix him, but he was trying to waka waka, all that kind of DJ stuff, which really wasn't possible. We could do slip cues, which is basically letting the record go at the right beat and then shoving the other one down. We could do those kind of things, but Rick Rubin was really trying to DJ a show because that's what he did at WNYU when he was on the air there. So all these things being said, Percy Sutton comes into town, apparently hears the station for the first time because there was no online monitoring back then. You had to be in the market to hear it. And apparently he was like, what the fuck is going on to my radio station? And Janie basically was told to, I don't know, clean it up, whatever it was, because he wasn't really happy. That's the main rumor. The other rumor was that they just weren't pulling enough money. Which one, either one is anybody's guess.
Yeah.
So Jeannie came and said, we're going to flip formats because they were going to go to this greatest hits of all time bullshit thing. And she came to me and said, I've gotten the marching orders were changing. And I pleaded with her. I said, can we just because if we can't tell the listeners it's changing, they're just going to get pissed. And you don't want that. So she said, because I know, because the kids who lived in Northeast Detroit at that time, they were addicted. I mean, a band would come by and there'd be 50, 60 people out in front of the radio station to meet the people. And that's when you knew, because they were like, the Clash is on the air. That means I can go meet the Clash because I know where they are because they're on the radio. And they would drive over there, sit in the parking lot at LBS and wait for the band to come out and then get autographs. And I'm sure there's a million photographs of people in the parking lot at LBS from 84. So I said to her, she goes, well, what do you want to do? And I said, look, can we organize a protest that let us go on the air, let us talk about the fact that the format's going to change, that the management, the upper management, not her, the upper management's not happy, and we'll have a rally. So that, because this is, because she wasn't telling me about the Percy Sutton thing, she was telling me about the lack of money. So I said, if you can take pictures of all of these people protesting in front of the radio station, that will give you more ammunition to go to advertisers and say, look at all these people who are listening, and then those people would buy commercials. That was the concept, to use social media before it was social media,
Right.
to get change. So she agreed to it. The rally happened. The news crews showed up. And the funny thing is, I look back on this and I go, typical, misinformed newscasters. But, they came into the studio, they videotaped, the camera was on the turntable as it's spinning around. You can't read the
artist.
The artist. And one of the DJs gets on and goes, "Oh yeah, I can't imagine how cool that song is by Echo and the Funny Men." and I'm thinking to myself, God, just
yeah.
And then of course Detroit becomes, like the dance music capital of the world because of the shit that Mojo was doing.
Yep.
He basically invented techno without even knowing. And still, a quick aside to this is because of Blue Monday being played, and obviously Mojo was playing it too, and he was playing Kraftwerk, and he was playing all the same stuff that I was playing on DET prior and then LBS. So New Order released that album called Technique after I'd moved to San Diego, and I got a chance to sit down and talk to them. And I said, "So tell me about this Technique album. What's the impetus?" And he said, "Wow, this really cool music started coming out of Detroit, and they were calling it techno, and we just really dug it, and so we decided to kind of, base what we were doing and use some of these techno influences." And they'd obviously never been to Detroit. They hadn't heard of the Belleville 3. They hadn't heard of Charivari and all those other things that was going on in Detroit. And I listened to them tell the story. I said, "How weird is it? It's kind of like mad cow disease. Mad cows who were like the cows that were being fed like animal byproducts of themselves. Basically, they were eating, their dead relatives, if you will." And I said, "How is it that New Order is now emulating the bands that were emulating them?"
New Order,
because
right.
Blue Monday was the impetus, along with Kraftwerk.
Absolutely.
So you take those two bands together, the Detroit techno scene booms out of those two bands, and then New Order goes, "Wow, this is really good shit. Let's do an album like this." It's kind of like, wait, what the fuck are you doing? And it was quite amazing when you think about how everything from underground resistance all the way through to even the Was Not Was stuff that was coming out. It was basically a Detroit thing. It really was. You couldn't predicted it to be anywhere else, So the LBS thing was kind of trippy because we were playing New Order. Whatever was out at the time, it was mainly Blue Monday at that point. And I think Your Silent Face we played. I can't remember what else we played, to be honest with you, because that just seemed to be the dominant track.
And you had so much to do with this side of the border, like we started earlier. We talked about 89X. Can you tell the story of CJOM and the call letters CHOM?
Yeah. It's funny. I brought this up last night because I don't really remember it. Whoops, hold on. The earpiece is falling out. Was that loud and obnoxious, by the way?
Oh no, not at all. But Go ahead.
What? I can't hear you.
What?
The call letters.
The call letters. So when it's a bizarre story, but I got to start at the beginning because it's just fucking trippy. No cell phones. You got to remember, there's no cell phones, no PDAs, no Facebook, no fucking anything. I'm backstage at the Missing Persons show because I was managing this band called Rhythm Corps, and we had just returned from Los Angeles. And Gail Parento booked us to play the Royal Oak Music Theater with Missing Persons to open up the show. And everybody's there for sound check, and I'm sitting in the backstage area, and the backstage phone rings. There's just a payphone, payphones. They just sat there so that bands could make phone calls out. This is before phone cards, before you could get a phone card and punch in a bunch of numbers. You had to fucking put money in the phone. And it rings. And I thought, that's weird. Who's calling the backstage phone? So I pick it up and I go, "Hello." And this guy says, "My name is Michael Linder. I'm looking for Gail Parento." And I said, "She's not here right now. Can I get her a message?" And he goes, "Yeah, I'm the new program director of CJOM in Windsor. And I knew that CJOM was not playing rock and roll anymore in 1983. I said, so what are you doing? He's like, well, I just want to talk to her because we're changing formats. We're gonna change to more like a K-rock format. And I said, well, that's really weird. And I'm glad I answered the phone because I'm actually the guy you want to talk to. Gail is the promoter, but I've done this before at DET in Detroit. And I said, I'm living in LA right now, but I'm managing this band. I'm here for a little bit, but I'll be back in LA. Do you want to talk about it? And he goes, wow, that's totally cool. Of course, at that point, he went on Wikipedia and he looked me up. No, I'm joking. There was no Wikipedia. In fact, he didn't even have a computer. So I go to LA, meet this guy. He was producing a show called Eye on LA, EYE on LA, because it was through CBS. And he was like a social media guy before social media was social media. But he was tapped by his old friend, Jeff Sterling, who owned the CJOM and the CHOM that was based in Toronto at that time.
And CJOM is CMIX, which is 93.9, the Rivers original. Is the Rivers original call letters.
No, 89X.
No.
Or 89X, sorry.
It was CJOM, and then it changed to CIMX when you guys got in there. And CHOM was his station.
In Montreal.
And I don't remember the name of Jeff's company. Sterling Broadcasting.
Sterling Broadcasting.
Yep. STIR, right? Not STE.
Yes. Correct.
And so Jeff Sterling basically kind of inherited the radio stations from his dad. I think his dad was a publisher, did newspapers. And Jeff wanted to get progressive with it. So he basically decided to tap Michael Linder. Michael Linder then eventually hired me, and we were going to launch in springtime of 83, I'm guessing it was, because I remember driving across the country in a drug dealer's Mercedes and with a trunk full of records. We had no room in the car to actually bring our luggage because our luggage would kind of sit right behind the back seat, which is very small because it was one of those small SL coupes. And we drove across the country, and in the back I had the whole library because I had picked up everything from IRS Records and A&M and a bunch of other labels because I was living in LA at the time, and we were driving them back to launch this format. And when I got back to Detroit, get a call from Michael Linder, and basically Jeff Sterling had jumped the gun because apparently in Canada you have to ask permission from all of your competitors to change the format of your radio station. And then they get to poll you and find out if what you're going to do and how you're going to do it, and they can either say yes or no. So it's not really what's the word I'm looking for? It's not really like
a free market occurrence.
It's not a free market, basically. And I don't know if that's changed since '83, but so basically,
but see, that's the kinder, gentler side of the Canadians. That's the kinder, gentler
sorry,
side
Greg,
of the Canadians.
I cut you off in the beginning. What did you say at the beginning?
Oh no, you're saying that the way they have to ask everything, and that's the whole thing. That's the kinder side of Canada, right there, where it's like, hey, we'd like to make a change. Does it bother you?
And that's great. I love that part of it. But apparently the CRTC got pissed because he was doing it and not asking permission. So apparently they put the kibosh on him doing it. And so I sat there with basically this massive amount of records sitting in my house for, I don't know, 3 months. That's when I talked to Mojo. And then about a month after that, I took the job at DET to go back there. Keep in mind, the job at DET never paid. I never got money from DET because they're a public station and I was doing it for the love of it.
Right.
But what was insane is that Michael Linder was telling me the story, to your point, how CHOM and CJOM got their call letters. Because Jeff Sterling, and probably in one of those videos of John and Yoko doing their bed-in Toronto.
Montreal. Was it Montreal?
Was it Montreal?
Yeah, I think it was Montreal.
It was Montreal.
Okay. Montreal. Okay, apparently they were sitting there doing the bed-in, and Jeff must own stations in Montreal.
He does. CHOM was in Montreal.
Oh, CHOM was in Montreal.
Correct.
CHUM was in Toronto, right?
That's correct. Yeah, that was the chum.
See, I don't. Then his empire was bigger than I remember. So in Montreal, John and Yoko are sitting there in bed. Jeff Sterling is a friend of theirs at this point for obvious reasons. and he was telling John Lennon about these new stations that he got, and he was trying to figure out call letters because call letters were everything back in those days. You know, you wanted something that stuck out. WABX. You wanted something that looked fucking cool. And John Lennon, in typical John Lennon fashion, goes, Jeff, you should call them the meditation stations. And Jeff's like, what? The meditation stations. Because, everybody was into, meditation in those days. And Jeff's like, but what do you mean? He goes, you should call them Chum, the meditation station, and then play a song. So he's like, Chum? And he goes, yeah, like just have the call letters be CHOM, Chum, and CJOM, Chum, so that basically the DJs could go Chum. And of course, you have to do the hand thing too when you're chumming people. And Jeff Sterling's like, well, fuck, I can't piss off John Lennon, obviously, because he's fucking John Lennon. So he changes the call letters to CJOM and CHOM. And that's why it was called CHOM or CJOM, is because John Lennon fucking told Jeff Sterling how to fucking brand his radio station. The sad part is that nobody fucking knows that nowadays. So that's a story that should be brought back, and we should write about it in the
we just did
in the Wall Street Journal.
We just did. We just brought that story to life. We've uncovered that story.
When this gets picked up by Entertainment Tonight, then and then we'll chat
sure.
about it.
You can make us a margarita if that's the case.
But the craziest part about all, but then right, you think about the story of John Lennon coming up with the idea of CJOM, and then I just think about just before when 89X, right, the cutting edge of rock took over, what was their awful slogan? Laser rockin', less talkin', Ohm FM. It's like,
wait, that was obviously before, because they were CIMX at one point, right? Or yes. Did they go back to CJOM?
Well, no, because it was CJOM was just before CIMX, right?
Okay.
So it was laser rockin', less talkin', Ohm FM.
That sounds kind of relaxing.
Yeah.
Yeah, but let me ask you. So how long before 89X changed? Did they change the call letters during the 89X period?
No, I if I'm not mistaken, it was just a little bit before that, from what I remember. So it was already CIMX.
Laser Rockin' was Al Purvin's decision?
Yeah, probably.
Or who was programming it? Who was programming it prior to Greg coming in at night and doing that stuff?
That, you know what? I couldn't even tell you. I couldn't even tell you who was the only DJ I remember on Ohm FM and then that whole format, and who's an amazing friend of mine because he was kind of like the guy that took me between Greg, John O'Leary, and Ken Venus. They were the ones who kind of took me under their wings to take me I don't even remember any of the DJs. That's how bad the station was before 88.7 took, like, the cutting edge of rock came in.
Right.
It's kind of like, it's like name a DJ, name a song.
So how old were you when guys like Ronnie Legg and the earlier CJOM, when it was a progressive rock station? It was the most progressive rock station at that time. It was more progressive than ABX, way more progressive than W4, and miles more progressive than Riff was. But do you remember that era at all, when they were playing?
You know what? I was young.
Album sides.
I remember that from like my cousin, like John and stuff like that. So I would have been probably only about 12 years old. I just remember some of that stuff, thinking to myself, going,
"What year were you born, Greg?"
66.
Okay, no, you would have been way younger than that, because I used to listen to it late 60s because I was born in 59. So in the late 60s, you would have been 3, 4, 5 years old.
Like 70, because I remember like 73, 74, probably in that age, where, because it would be like all of a sudden, they'd throw a song on and it would be like 13 minutes.
Right.
And you'd be like, that's awesome. While my friends were listening to, the Bay City Rollers, I was listening to this going, what the hell is this? 13 minutes of some crazy guitar solo. Woohoo!
Michael,
Pre-CanCon.
yeah,
Sorry,
yeah,
Chris,
that is
go for it.
pre-CanCon. You know, I mean, as we're wrapping up, I mean, you've had such a great long career between Detroit and L.A. You've known so many of the artists who've kind of shaped our lives. A lot of them are gone. Who do you miss the most?
Uh, God, that's such a fucking tough question, Chris.
Yeah, like even with just the guys you've worked
It's
with or
funny
known.
because it came up the other day. My old roommate Vince Bannon, another
Oh my
fellow
gosh.
Canadian. You know, when he moved to the States, we shared a house. Me, Andy Peabody, and Vince shared a house, and he always knew that one of my favorite bands was Buzzcocks.
Mm.
I loved Buzzcocks because they were just there was two main guys, just like it was kind of like the Beatles, the punk rock Beatles, and Steve Diggle was kind of like, I don't want to say he was the John Lennon, but he was more like the John Lennon. Uh, and then Pete Shelley wrote these amazing pop songs. I mean, when you think about Orgasm Addict, the fact that this guy's writing a song about beating himself to death, you know, jacking off to what's the line? He's making out with school kids, winos and heads of state. He even made it with the lady who puts the little plastic somethings on the Christmas cakes. Little plastic on the Christmas cake. And you think about this guy's writing a song about what he jacks off to. And I thought, that's fucking insane. Played it on the radio endlessly because it was just really funny. But Vince called me yesterday because somebody was talking to him about me for some reason. And it came up that I'm the guy that found Blink through a friend of mine called O, who was in a band who produced their first like proper CD. And Vince goes, you know, why did you play them? And I said, because they reminded me of Buzzcocks, because they had the funny guy in the band,
Yeah.
the guy that was writing songs about, you know, fucking his mother and all that kind of bullshit. I don't think that's very funny, but it's funny when it's in a song. And then you had Mark Hoppus, who was more like the, you know, whatever. And so it was like, he was more like, Hoppus is more like the John Lennon, but the guy who was writing all the crazy, memorable songs, Tom DeLonge, who's now in a new band called Angels and Airwaves, it was just this juxtaposition. Tom has this whiny voice, just like Pete Shelley did. So my point is, I miss Pete Shelley because there were times, and this is not something that's really kind of cool to admit, but there was times like when they made their first comeback in the early 90s. I saw them in New York. It was all the original members except their drummer, this guy called John Maher, Maher. John Maher was no longer in the band because he'd gone off and he started making race cars or something. So they hired the Smiths drummer, whose name I'm spacing on right now. Not Mike Joyce, he's the bass player. So what's his name? Gnip's going to look it up for me right now.
I am.
So
because my mind is completely blank right now.
right. So the drummer from the Smiths was now playing with the Buzzcocks, another Mancunian band, right? Smiths and Buzzcocks, both from Manchester.
Right.
So I saw their set in New York, and I was really kind of like, holy fuck, these guys are on fire. But one thing that really irked me was they played this song called I Believe. It's like a 7-minute song on the second US album. And they played it in a different key. And I thought, that's fucking weird. You know, I can play that song on guitar, on bass, and it's in a different key. Hello, Mom, I'm on the internet. So they were coming to San Diego. They would play this place called Iguanas, which is down in Tijuana. It was like a rollerball club. I mean, it was just fucking insane. So they came to the studio first. I had $30 in my pocket, $110 and $120, and they come in the studio, and I said, "Hey, let me ask you a question. Why did you change the key on I Believe?" And they go, "What?" And I go, "When you played it in New York, you're playing it in E, where on the album it's in F." And he says, "Oh no, we've never changed the key." And I said, "Well, have you listened to the version you played? It's in F." And they're like, "We never tuned up. We just basically tuned to whoever was there in the studio." So I was like, how does that work? And they were like, how do you even know it's in a different key? I said, because I could play it in F perfectly, but I've had to relearn it in E now because I've suddenly realized that it's in the wrong key. And they go, okay. And I said, I relearned it because here's $30. And I push it in front of their faces and I go, here's $30 that says I can play it with you tonight. And Pete Shelley kind of looks at me with this puzzled look. And then Steve Diggle grabs all the money. So the John Lennon guy grabs all the money. And Pete Shelley pulls 20 out and he gives it back to me. He goes, pay the rest on stage. And I'm like, okay, he's got an out, but he said, yes, you can play. So that night, it's always their last song because it's 7 minutes long. And he goes, do you know how it goes? And I'm like, yeah. And he goes, no, but how we play it live. And I go, yes, I just saw you play it in New York. So he goes, okay. That night, after they finish up, they're just about to go in for their encore. They hand me one of these Rickenbackers that Steve Diggle normally plays. And he goes, plug it on the left side, blah, blah, just turn it all the way up, everything up, just basically up, 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 up. And so I go, all right. And they kind of look over like, all right, here we go, fucker. And they start playing it. You kind of like, all the instruments kind of join in. And then all of a sudden it goes fucking raucous for about 10 minutes because they extend it live. And at the end, they all kind of walk off stage. They just drop their instruments and walk off stage in order. And the drummer's always last. He's basically playing the drum beat forever. So I fucking get up there and I was just, first thing is I'm scared shitless because I think I'm going to fuck up, which I didn't do, luckily. And the song finishes, but in the meantime, while you're playing, it was like a like rollerball, Mad Max Thunderdome. People are fucking jumping on the stage from behind you. It was just people bouncing off stage, just rolling. It was fucking insane. And I almost got clocked at one point because I've never seen a pair of not Jack Purcell's, a pair of Chuck Taylors go flying by my head. Like I could feel like the air go by and realize they're attached to a human. And he does a somersault on stage and he goes off into the thing. And I'm thinking, fuck, this is the best $30 I've ever spent. and Pete Shelley he was a complete fucking gentleman about it. It's like, oh, you want to play with my punk band? Like one of the first punk bands in the U.S. Or in the world. And I'm like, yeah, because this is the punk rock thing to do. Pay the band because I do. And I said, I know you're not making too much money on this tour. So I'll give you an extra $30 to help the fund. And they fucking went for it. And I still to this day can't believe that they went for it, but they did. I ended up playing. It's funny because I actually have my Damned shirt on right now. I don't mean a damned shirt, but I mean a shirt that says the Damned on it, if you can see that.
Yeah.
But I ended up doing the same thing with them because the drummer from the Damned, this guy called Pinch, was living in San Diego for a long time. And he's a fucking wonderful human. So I ended up just, deciding, well, I could bribe other bands to play with them. I played with Mike Watt. I played with the Damned. I played with Buzzcocks. So pretty much the punk legends of the world. I just, never got a chance to play with the Sex Pistols because they never got back together long enough. And who else would have there been? Those are like the three main ones as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
Pistols, Damned, whatever. There's no way that you could play with the Cure because there's just too many motherfuckers in that band. But that being said, Pete Shelley I miss a lot because he was always a really good interview because he's, how many men can write a song called Homo Sapien and actually had a hit with it? Homo Sapien actually did quite well for him. It actually charted in the U.S., which is kind of scary. I miss Joe Strummer because I interviewed him twice, once at LBS and then once again when I was at the station called Y107 in LA. And it's weird about Joe because Joe, I remember him just being kind of, he was just kind of like your older brother that you didn't know you had. And he would basically discuss anything with you. And he shared all kinds of wisdom to make sure that you didn't fuck up your life. And when he died, that was like a fucking huge, punch in the gut. It was just like, what the fuck? Because I had just seen him earlier that summer, brought my kids to see the Mescaleros, and it was just really a sad day for me because he's fucking amazing. And then Mark Hollis, who was in the band called Talk Talk, and Talk Talk kind of disappeared in the late '80s. They just kind of, they disappeared off into weirdness. And they had an album called Spirit of Eden that came out in '88. And didn't do too well at all. Didn't sell many copies, but I used to ask EMI Records to send me a box of it like every 6 months. So like 20 copies. That's how many's in a box, right, Greg? 20 copies
Yes.
of a CD?
Yep.
So I would just have them send me 20 copies, and I would hand them out to bands, new bands that were coming into the 91X studio to do interviews. I would just hand them to these bands and go, here, you need to listen to this. And subsequently, I've met other bands, Catherine Wheel. I don't know if you remember the Catherine Wheel.
Yeah, sure.
Oh yeah. My ears
Rob
still hurt from
Dickinson.
them.
Sorry, Greg?
My ears are still ringing from their show at St. Andrews Hall.
Right. So Rob Dickinson, who's the singer in the band, we were having breakfast one day, and he said to me, he goes, yeah, that album was so influential with Catherine Wheel that they actually hired the producer not to produce their record, but so they could ask him how they did it, because that album is so fucking trippy. And they hired this guy called Tim Freeze Green to basically do their album and produce the first Catherine Wheel album, because they were trying to figure out how in the fuck that record was done. So they're not hiring the guy to fix their car. They're hiring him to ask him how he fixed somebody else's car, which is fucking insane when you think about it. And there's a couple of books have been written about that album. But Mark Hollis, I met him once at LBS. The three of them came in. They were opening, I think, for Depeche Mode, if I remember correctly. I'd have to go look it up in the old concert database thing. But they were opening for somebody at Pine Knob. And they were just fucking hilarious. And this was in the It's My Life era, that album.
Yeah.
And the whole time I kept thinking to myself, fuck, I'd fucking like to hang with these guys. You know what I mean? They're just so fucking funny. But they write such amazing music. You keep thinking to yourself, like, how do they fucking write this music and they're just funny?
Yeah.
You know, it's not like meeting Andrew Eldridge, and like who I did meet, you know, drove him around in my car at one point, but you know, you don't want to fucking hang out with Andrew Eldridge because he's going to be a fucking sour time, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
And he kind of was back in the day.
He was.
See, the one thing though that I have to, you know, you were talking about Talk, and I said one of my favorite things. I don't usually like cover songs, but I loved No Doubt doing "It's My Life" because it brought attention back to Talk.
Right, and by the way, I think it was one of the reasons that that band, especially Mark Hollis, was able to be, you know, to survive as long as he did.
Right,
because that put probably more money in their pockets through the publishing on that than ever. And the other thing that I didn't realize until years later was Mark Hollis's brother, Ed, was the Ed in Eddie and the Hot Rods, which was one of the seminal punk bands from England back in the day. So he had a brother that was in the business. When Mark died, I don't know, 4 years ago. Mm-hmm. It was just kind of like, fuck, like not like they were ever going to reform or play any more gigs. You know, that kind of wish in your head is always there that one of your favorite bands will have to get back together because they need the money, you know, and you're just hoping it happens. We knew it wouldn't happen with Talk because Talk was so fucking weird and diverse towards the end. They got, you know, they were releasing pop songs for their first couple, 3 albums, and then they got weirder and weirder and weirder to the point where they became like an artistic, you know, revolution in their own right. And still, you know, to this day, people will go like, oh, I remember you gave me a copy of Spirit of Eden. And it took them, same thing with me. It took me like 3 months to listen to that thing to understand what the fuck they were doing, because it's not a normal record. Right. In fact, now it's being reviewed in some like Mojo and all these other magazines where people are now, and it's all on the internet. You can read it on the, on your tablet, which is funny because, you know, the word tablet is coming from like the 10 Commandments coming down on the tablets. It's like those fuckers were engraved. But anyway, point being is that, you know, you think about that album, the fact that they're writing about it 30 years later, it came out in 88, so 98, 08, yeah, like 30 years later, they're still writing about this album as being revolutionary, but nobody fucking bought it at the time because it didn't sound like the album prior. Sure. It didn't sound like Color of Spring. It didn't sound like It's My Life or whatever that one was called. But they were still, you know, so yeah, there's a few people I miss like that. And then we need to bring up the point that we just lost John O'Leary about 2-3 weeks ago. John obviously worked with many radio stations in Detroit over the years, and obviously on 89X, where
The
Vince
lanky
Canova
one.
nicknamed him Pops. Sorry, what, Greg?
He was also we always called him the lanky one as well.
Right. That
Yeah.
was a nickname from when he first got into radio when he was like 18, 19.
Okay.
Because he was always tall and skinny, but Vince Canova, who used to be my assistant here in San Diego, who's the programming assistant at 91X, and Greg St. James stole him when he realized that he knew more than anybody else. Nobody knows this, but Vince Canova was the first guy to really push for bands like Alice in Chains to get on the radio, and Nirvana and a bunch of those kind of bands. He was not the grunge king because it didn't even have the name grunge yet, but he loved that stuff, and rightfully so. But yeah, John O'Leary, he was my mentor. He's the guy that got me into radio. He's the guy that kind of basically pointed me in the right direction and chastised me for not thinking I could do it. Which is, as you know, like there's always somebody in your life that goes, how the fuck did they know I could do this?
Yeah.
Because you don't know yourself. You can't fucking figure it out because you haven't done it yet. And John, God rest his lanky soul, but fuck, I mean, that guy, I was probably 16 when I first started talking to him. 15 when I first started talking to him. Because he'd answer the request line, ABX, and you'd listen to that fucking booming voice, and you'd be like, "Oh my God, I'm talking to the guy that's playing the records." He, I didn't bring this up in his obituary thing, but I called him up because Runaways were coming into the studio, and I don't remember if he was doing the interview with them, or he just said, "Look, I know you fucking love the Runaways, but they're coming in at like 2, 3 in the afternoon or something." He goes, "Do you want to come by and meet them?" And I'm fucking, do I want to come by and meet them? Fuck. I want to date all of them. I'm fucking 17 at the time or whatever. And sure enough, I fucking get to go over, hit the little back buzzer at ABX, go up to the thing, and I was able to sit in the room while they were being interviewed. Little did I know that, years later, Joan Jett, who has a brother who actually lives in San Diego, that we'd meet and fucking talk all the time because her solo career kind of took off when I was at, between LBS and Wheels back in the day. I Hate Myself for Loving You and all those, I Love Rock and Roll. All those songs were in that same era. And Joan, still to this day, she's one of my fucking heroes. But it was John O'Leary that basically said, "Yeah, come on up, meet the Runaways." And it was like, fuck yeah, dude, I'm there. I don't remember where they played. I don't remember going to the show. I just remember meeting them at ABX because John O'Leary was the man, if you will. He was the guy that basically made all that shit happen. But
all good souls, man. All good souls.
He was a truly John O'Leary was a very kind. I mean, that's the only thing I can say. Kind and gentle human being. And and I guess we should probably say this as well. Another kind and gentle, wonderful man passed away, Charles English. If you did anything in the clubs, at Todd's City Club, Leader Knock, the Falcon, anything like that. Charles English passed away just a couple of days ago as well.
State Theater.
And State Theater, I DJ'd.
Yeah, it's almost like Charles was known for a long time as being like the resident insane jock at Todd's, and then he got to branch out and do other things, which we were grateful for, especially when he could do all ages places, because that was always a real issue with clubs. I was talking to a few people the other day about how many people met him when they were 15, 16, because getting fake ID was possible in those days. You could adjust things before Photoshop, and people would, or you just go grab your 18-year-old friend, because the drinking age was 18 at one point. And I was talking to somebody that remembers going when they were 16, and I'm thinking, Jesus Christ, 16 years old, because now the 21 to 16-year-old gap seems so fucking huge. But at the time, it was like they were just 2 years younger than they should have been to go to a bar, which still seems kind of insane. I'm amazed they let 18-year-olds vote, to be honest with you, because some of them are not that. Oh, sorry, did I say that out loud?
Yep.
But my point was that Charles, his whole deal was, that he basically defined the like I don't want to say the fuck you jock, but the one that people go up and want to make requests, especially at Todd's. And he would go, no, because it was something he would never play. And then he would play other shit that you'd be like, why the fuck is he playing Neil Diamond or whatever the fuck? He would drop in these fucking totally random weird songs.
Sure.
Just because he fucking was Charles English. And as I was saying in the Requiem or whatever it was for the Free Press, that didn't make it. I never got to hang with him. I knew him from the clubs. We would see each other every once in a while at a show, but the conversations were always me trying to scribble down what it was he was playing so I could go find the record to be able to put it on the radio. And then eventually a relationship blossomed to the point when I left Detroit, came to San Diego, and I was sending 3 hours of reel-to-reels back to Detroit to Wheels every week. That DJ Diana, Charles English, Mike Ziff, St. Andy, and I can't remember who else it was, but basically they would hit me to what was big in their quiver at that point that they would play in clubs. And it was generally a brand new song. And there's a YouTube video up there of me introducing Diana's pick for the week, which was Drive, She Said by Stan Ridgway from Wall of Voodoo.
Yeah, great album.
And then I played Mike Ziff's pick for that week, which was You Spin Me, Brand New Lover, because You Spin Me Around was done at that point.
Dead or Alive.
And, so Dead or Alive's Brand New Lover, that Mike Ziff picked, but we didn't get to, I don't remember what Charles picked because it gets cut off on the thing. But Charles was always, part of that show, because the way I looked at it was, for the under 18 crowd, or at that point it was probably the under 21 crowd, if you couldn't go see Charles spin, I wanted to make sure he had an outlet of more people on the radio that would understand what he's about as a DJ just by him picking one song. And that went on for months. I don't remember how long it went on, but then eventually I got booted off LBS. I think it was because I leaked the whole David Bowie album. Against the company wishes.
Do you think that was the reason?
Well, it's funny because I got a call saying that Wheels had gotten the album, and they were threatened with all kinds of lawsuits if they were going to leak it. So I called.
Which album was this? Which
this
album?
Would have been
not Earthling. Before Earthling.
No, it was like Glass Spider era.
Oh yeah, okay. There we got. Wait, 84.
Yeah, it's so funny because you just, David Bowie kept releasing so many goddamn records. It's like, pick one, but it was that era. I think it was Glass Spider era. But the insane part about it was I called Jimmy Stoddard, who was basically my buddy. I'd known him forever at that point. And he took one of the reel-to-reels, and before he sent it back to me, he taped the whole Bowie album from his source, which probably was a CD at that point because CDs were the leaked CD, and he put it all on a reel-to-reel for me and then sent it back to me because we'd use the same reel-to-reels. So you just go back and forth from Detroit to San Diego. So then I got it and basically started playing it on the radio in San Diego, and I think it was Doug Podell called up and went, "Come on, dude. I know where you got that from." I was like, "Yeah." He goes, but the problem is we're getting the blame for it. And I was like, well, what are they going to do? Come down to Mexico and stop me from playing it? So everything got kind of, convoluted at one point. And I think Doug ended up leaving Wheels at one point. O'Leary was there too with me when I was there back in the day. But all that being said, it was just kind of like there was unwritten things that we would do and always protect each other's asses. But Radios in Motion lasted on Wheels for a little bit and then disappeared. And I think that was really the last time it was heard, for 3 hours a week in Detroit. And it was all done through the magic of magnesium oxide or whatever it was on these pieces of tape. I mean, you think, fucking, how weird is that? I could send a sound file now.
Yeah, where you're actually sending tapes.
Yeah,
reel-to-reel tapes.
Reel-to-reels.
Yeah, back and forth.
They got erased every single week, so it's not like we have an archive of them.
The masters don't exist either. So
Yeah,
It's crazy.
just
Well,
degoused them all.
I just want to say, thanks for letting us be on the Michael Halloran show today.
Listen, I know this is your show, but when you have guests on,
I know, but the
guests get to put their feet
you know how much we love you and appreciate everything that you've done, and really such a cornerstone in the history of modern rock, alternative rock, whatever you want to call it, in this region. What makes Detroit and Windsor so great. So thanks for it's great catching up.
If it wasn't for you guys, because believe you me, there's no 30-year-olds that give a shit anymore, even though. They all are buying Beatles records and they're all wearing Misfits t-shirts, which is fucking hilarious to me. But, if it wasn't for guys like you that, were kind of, and I don't mean this in a weird way, but your job to me, my job is to I feel like a drug dealer. You turn people onto something. First one's free. And then when they get addicted to it, you expect them to do things like what you guys do, which is, get into radio and make sure that people, the legend keeps going, because it just, I can't do that. Like, you can, because you can sit there and go, I was talking to Benson the other day, and we were talking about, how people can influence you. And I was always talking about John O'Leary, because he was the guy that kind of forced me into it. Unknowingly forced me into it. And it's like the same thing. Hopefully I've done the same thing for other people. Because like, Chris, when you brought up that Kissing the Pink song,
yeah,
I never wanted to stop playing that song. I thought that whole album was just fucking amazing. And early Hunters and Collectors. There were things to me, Talking to a Stranger was one of my favorite songs of all time. But I have to move on to 85 and 86 and 87. And then you fall in love with bands like Rage Against the Machine, and I turned the BBC onto Rage Against the Machine years ago, and probably one of my favorite accomplishment stories is the fact that song ended up going to #1 in England years after it was being played by the BBC, because they were just trying to keep whatever bullshit Christmas record was coming out by whatever bullshit boy band. They were trying to keep it out, and so it was #1 at Christmas. Because there was a huge campaign, and this is what I love about English people. They fucking do weird things. And so they kept it, I don't remember what year it was, but Killing in the Name of was #1 at Christmas in England. Fucking hilarious.
Yeah.
But I was the first guy to play it on the BBC, because I was on a program called the Jackie Brambles program, and I turned her in the early days of Rage Against the Machine and said, you really got to play this band, because English people will love them. And they ended up loving them so much that like 10 years later it became a hit again.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And blocked all that stuff.
That is just brilliant.
So thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate the chat. I appreciate the and by the way, thanks for the loons that you sent. That's going to come in very handy.
And toonies.
But here's the thing that I really need is that the Tim Horton donuts that you promised me, one thing, and then the free tickets to the Windsor Ballet.
Well, here's what we'll do. I'll send you the new ones, the Tim Biebs, which is the Justin Bieber Timbits.
Really?
And then he's hooked up.
Are you
with them.
fucking with me? Because I'm going to believe this.
He hooked up with them. It's called Tim Biebs. There's 3 flavors, and they're selling out everywhere because I don't know. God is putting a plague on us again.
But hey, it's probably coming to San Diego anytime soon.
Don't fucking this is the way you got to look at it. Anything that the Canadians produce that basically affects the world. I've had this discussion with my kid, and I know we're going way over time because people are looking at their watches right now and going, when is this shit over? But let me tell you something. I told because he was like, fuck Justin Bieber. And I'm like, no, that guy deserves to fucking change people's opinions about things because he's fucking uber talented. He's an amazing drummer. He's an amazing, well, maybe not amazing songwriter because he's probably got tons of help. But the point is that anybody can get out there and shake shit up and get young kids interested in music. Fucking, it's got to happen. If it doesn't happen, then we're going to be listening to Glass Tiger for the rest of our lives.
Oh,
that was your other import.
I have mad respect for his career. That whole thing, though, it's just, I'm telling you right now, they're the worst TV commercials for Tim Biebs. That's the thing. God bless him for his talent, but these commercials are being aired every 3 minutes, and he's not a good actor. I'm just saying.
Yeah. But anyway, we're going to send you some maple syrup.
Yeah, some real
maple syrup. Yeah.
Not the
And when you come to
the
Detroit, you know
$75
what? When things get better, hopefully soon, you come this way. And if you need some ballet, we know where to go.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, I just, my wife is was went to Assumption, kind of raised in Windsor until she moved to the States. But so I don't want to say I'm married to a Canadian, but I am married to a Canadian.
You can
and
say
I get
that.
reminded about it all the time.
You can say that. It's okay. It's okay. There's a therapy group for it, but it's okay.
Well, okay, yeah. I don't know what the fuck the therapy group be called. It's probably something like I don't know. I was trying to come up with something
Le
really
Habitat.
funny.
It's,
All right.
You're right on, eh?
Thanks again, Michael. It's always great to catch up, and you got so many stories. Maybe next time we can talk about ministry and a couple other crazy stories.
Oh, fucking ministry!
Uncle Al. We all love Uncle Al.
I know. Listen, right now I
let's
can
do
see
that.
that the network is coming in and saying, "You fuckers are over time. You need to." I'm trying to find the camera. You need to stop fucking broadcasting because these pixels are costing us money.
There you go.
See, you can tell your radio guys because you think there's a fucking time limit.
Mike,
If I
is a
just kept
time.
going and kept interrupting you for 20 minutes, you would realize that nobody would fucking tune out because it's on YouTube and they're going to put the pause button. They're going to go have their fucking what's the fucking gravy and
poutine.
poutine. They're going to go have their poutine and they're going to come back and they're going to fucking say, "All right, I'm picking this back up again because he brought up poutine."
We've really lost it. We've really lost it.
Listen, Chris, you haven't lost anything. Right now, there's 17 people that are. Can you see the numbers? By the way, is there a screen there that says 4 people are still there?
I'm not sure. I just concentrate on you.
Well, I informed at least 10 people
There you
that
go.
we were going to be doing this. And
was-
I don't think any of them are paying attention.
It's wonderful. Thanks a lot for everything, Michael.
All right, love you guys.
Love you too, man.
Thank you very much.
Stay
And,
healthy and stay happy.
Absolutely.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Oh, no,
Gnyp,
stay
your
healthy
microphone
and
is
stay
shit.
happy.
See, what is Chris? What's up with this microphone? Do you control it?
No,
Do you
I don't.
Control this thing?
No, go ahead.
Stay healthy and stay happy.
Thank you. I'm going to go surfing right now.
Oh, all the best, man. Great seeing you. Greg, it probably is one of the longest shows we've ever done, but we'll be back next week.
It was that, but you know what? Let's be honest. When it comes to Mike Halloran,
Yeah.
sometimes it's one of these ones.
I know it is. And literally, there's like another 3 hours worth of great stories. So
Easily.
absolutely. Have a great week, everybody. We'll see ya. Be well.
Bye-bye.